But it truly is an honor. I want a special thanks to John Wade and the Chamber, not just for setting this meeting up, but providing a vision for this community, for understanding what it takes to build public-private partnerships, what it takes to engage the public, and what it takes to have a vision that leads to, it's not just by luck that we have this community. It's not by luck that we have the world's premier medical facility that's on everybody's lips in Washington right now. It's not by luck that we are seeing a bit of an insulation from a very, very difficult economy that was made by choices of the people in this room to get us to that point. And we're here today to talk about maybe the next step in that, in the Southern Rail Corridor, about how we position ourselves to, as John said, I think we have to be very clear on this, this is not a false choice or false dichotomies. The railroad is critically important. Rail infrastructure in this nation is going to be as critical now as it was 100 years ago in building where we're going to go, in combination of freight rail as well as passenger rail. There's a vision laid out there that it is the most economical. You can move large amounts of freight at the cheapest rate. It has positive impacts in terms of emissions that we're talking about now, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, those types of things. The Southern Rail Corridor is exactly that. We see a city here, and you heard the statistics, the growth, the number of crossings, we can give you all the statistics. This city has continued to grow. This city has continued to make strategic investments. This city has continued to place itself amongst the best in the country. And what we need to understand is that the rail, as the rail is positioned right now, was positioned for a 19th or 20th century city at best. It wasn't positioned for a 21st century city. It wasn't positioned for the massive growth that can be associated with the investment you're making. And look no further down the road than go just a little bit north there on 52 and get to Pine Island and realize what the influence of this city is making regionally. We saw in Friday's paper that that Tower Investments in Burrell is approaching or trying to raise their $1 billion for the Elk Run project up there. These are going to be companies that are going to be moved from San Francisco into Pine Island. We're going to see massive investments in biosciences. We're going to see the ability to create and grow jobs like we've never seen in the state. Another project that is highly dependent on the infrastructure that's here from the Mayo Clinic, the University of Minnesota, and move south over to Austin. You have the Hormel Institute. They've added another 190 PhDs and medical doctors at the Hormel Institute, working in conjunction with the University of Minnesota, with the Mayo Clinic, and all of that is building energy around what could be, and the vision that people have is a bioscience corridor rivaling Silicon Valley of the 90s and 2000 in California. That's the vision that's here, and all of you, whether it be in the construction trade, whether it be in hospitality, whether it be at IBM, all of those things have energy to work together. And the ability to be able to make this function isn't a false choice that you're against rail. Rail is going to play a key role in this. If we're going to move wind turbines, if we're going to move cellulosic ethanol, if we're going to move the next generation of power that's going to be in this country, it's going to move by rail. So it's not that choice. It's to try and make rail more efficient. It's to try and make this city's growth more efficient and predictable. And just think about it. I think John brought this up. The discussions around this and the discussion around Mayo, all of the talk that went into before Chrysler went into bankruptcy, Mayo has more employees than Chrysler at this point. This is a major national institution. This is a major national city in growth, and it's one of the only areas that is showing sustained growth is in the biosciences and health research. We're seeing that. That possesses great potential for all of us. And I did not, as I said, this is not my project. This is not Governor Pauline's project. This is not Senator Klobuchar's project. This comes from local officials. This comes from through the representative process of local officials putting things forward and putting the process forward. I am acutely aware that whenever you do a project like this, you're displacing people. This isn't disdaining landowners on this. They're a critical part of this. Anytime we do anything in this nation, they have to be included in this. Everyone needs to be included. That's where you will have the local input and the state input will all work together to find the route of less impact. And we are definitely concerned about this. And I think for those who would intimate anything else, that's an unfair characterization. I think the city of Rochester, I think Olmsted County has done a very good job of trying to articulate that they understand we're all partners in this. And while this is the core of the economic activity, those cities outside of this and along any proposed route absolutely need to be part of that conversation. Just to give you an example of this, is always the part of legislating and leadership is that government is basically about prioritizing our values and prioritizing what needs to move forward. I think because if you saw the economic impact, you saw, and those who would say, you're right, and those who would say this, that, well, if we just left it alone, it wouldn't cost us any money. Well, yes, it would. Yes, it would. It would cost us in investment, and in my opinion, it would cost us far more. I'll tell you, there's a couple projects. The completion of Highway 14 ranks up there with this, but this is a high priority, and obviously my highest priority as we submitted it. But we did submit it along with 55th Street project, which received some money for this too, as a priority that needs to be done. I've got another one that some of you may not be familiar with, but I'm telling you, this is exactly the way smart investment on all levels should work, is the Lewis and Clark Rural Water Project in southwest Minnesota. This is a project between South Dakota, Minnesota and Iowa to bring water to about 300,000 residents by diverting it from the Missouri River into those areas. The entities involved in this, all the municipal entities, the state entities, have not only voted to fund this, because here's the deal. If you're in Adrian, Minnesota, can't build a house. There's no water. Can't start a business. There's no water. They are frozen on any type of growth. This is a basic function, water, to be able to provide for these cities. They have all paid ahead on their taxes. They got a commitment from the federal government to fund this project and get it done, understanding that if all of us come together, and this is a project, I swear, it's the only time you'll see this in the room. Steve King from Iowa, Stephanie Herseth from South Dakota, John Thune from South Dakota, Tim Johnson, Amy Klobuchar, myself, all 100% committed that we need to finish the federal portion of this that was promised to them, because the states and the local entities have done it ahead. And it is a great partnership of understanding that's how you invest, that's how you get this done, and it makes sense. And I quite honestly think we have to have the discussion in this country. Yes, they're federal dollars. That means that I guess technically those dollars could come from other states, but the state of Minnesota invests a lot of federal tax dollars, and we're one of the lowest receivers of it coming back. And so I'm proud to tout all of those as my three major projects, but I think from an economic standpoint and from a growth standpoint, there's none that provides larger numbers in terms of what I consider to be the negatives of not completing it. So, but again, if it could, just as a last note on this, I think it's important how all these things tie together. The completion of Highway 14 as well as the completion of this project all work together, where I think too much in the past we've built the silos of different things. And coming back to Joe's point on this, it took the Eisenhower vision of an integrated interstate system to have us starting to look more regionally, and I think this is one. We're going to be tied to Chicago by rail at some point in this, and again, I would say if it's feasible, those who say, well, maybe nobody's going to ride this and it's not worth spending the money, that is a great point to bring up, and one that darn sure better be explored. That's why Governor Paulini has authorized the statewide rail plan with our state legislators to find out what's the best route, what's the best way, how does all this tie together. And this beautiful airport sitting here south of town also plays a role in that.